in yoga, there is this teaching of the five koshas. Right? This is something that I introduced this week through our assignments. The five koshas, you can think of them as different dimensions, or literal translation of it are sheets, right? Um, that's another way of saying like layers, right? Different layers of the self. And when we refer to the self, we can, maybe conceptually in our minds understand that there are different facets of the self. And in yoga, they can be distinguished across five different layers or five different dimensions. The first one, right? So it goes from gross or superficial to the more subtle and non-physical modes of being, right, or states. The first one is physical, right? Your physical body through sensations and stuff like that. The next one, right, and it gets more and more subtle. The next one is energetic. And the energy is, actually, let's go through all five, right? So it's the physical, the body. Second is energetic, right? Your energetic body. Your mental or thinking body, consciousness / awareness, and then finally an integration in some understandings known as enlightenment. Yeah, and just kind of a quick overview across these five koshas, right? Physical bodies, I would say the most accessible, palpable to understand, right? Because everybody has a body, right? And we can be very attuned to sensation, right? So that's simple, right? The next one is energetic. Energy is often in from the yoga tradition related to the breath, right? The breath can serve. It's not necessarily the breath itself, but in our experience of this life, it's the breath, right? Because, and more directly, energy is called prana, right? It's just um, the life force of all living things, right? Whether it's plants, animals, us as humans, right? Anything that has a life contains this kind of um, energetic stuff. In our case, right, it's often the breath. And a nice way or easy way to think about this is that, if you just kind of sense different energetic states, like let's say when you're pumped up, like you're going on a jog or you're in a concert, your breathing is often a little bit faster, right? A little bit quicker. When you are winding down, getting ready to go to bed, or um, uh, uh, if somebody is having a panic attack, right? One of the common things that pop into people's head is, oh, put a paper bag on your face, right? And that's the intention behind that is to slow your breathing down, right? And so the breath is very closely interrelated to different energetic states, right? And it's a nice segue from the gross understanding, right, of the physical body to the more subtle things that you can't really perceive through sensations, um, or in the material world, right? We all know that the breath exists, um, but where is it, right? Where is your breath? It's a marriage and a bridge between your internal physical mental landscape and the environment around you, right? It's both outside and inside of you, literally and conceptually. Next is the mental landscape, right? That we have brains, right? One of the primary functions, right? The nature of the brain is to work things out, to create stories around the reality of the chaos that we live in, right? We really don't know what's going to happen beyond this particular moment that we're in, right? So our mind is constantly trying to make sense of these different experiences, right? Layering it with various stories so that things make sense to us. And the fourth one is awareness, right? Um, and this becomes a lot more subtle and um, a little less material, right? Whether or not you practice or have a practice of being aware, right, through whatever kind of mindfulness practice that you've done, or maybe it's the first time you're even kind of considering it, right? I find that one way to access, at least conceptually understand awareness, is that okay, you can kind of grasp the idea of, yeah, there's a physical body, there's an energetic state, there's a mental canvas within yourself, right? But there's something that notices these different dimensions, right? That at one moment you can feel a certain sensation in your body and then it goes away, right? You can feel tired after eating a big meal, and then your energy can get uplifted, right? In the next 15 minutes, right? You can have a particular thought about something, and then maybe you forget all about it, right? Maybe you don't remember it anymore, right? Maybe you can think very strongly about something, and then somebody else has a very completely different perspective on it, right? So these things are mutable or transient. They come and go, right? But across these different things, there's something else there that notices these things happening, and I think that's one way to understand awareness, right, or consciousness. Is not like, oh, there's this one thing that notices my left shoulder going up and down, and then my right shoulder going up and down. I have another awareness that does this, another awareness that looks to the other side. No, there's just this kind of singular thing that, whether you've been aware of it or not, or acknowledge that that's what's going on, right? That it's been with you the moment you saw flickers and glimmers of it when you were an infant, right? All the way till the end of your physical life, right? That there's this steady thing that is aware of you blowing your candles when you turn 8 years old on your birthday, right? To when you blow your candles when you're 78, right? It's the same consciousness. And then lastly, being connected, or maybe just kind of understanding it, maybe conceptually, mentally in your head, that there's this consciousness that you have, that maybe that all living things have this kind of consciousness, right? And you can kind of see that in the underlying foundations of all religions or spiritual practices, right? That there's something that binds and unites us beyond these transitory factors of being, right? The body, the energy, the mental states. There's something that connects all living beings. And that's my perspective, right? That's my perspective and understanding through my own practice and experience of what enlightenment means, right? It can be called many various different things, but I believe the basis and foundation of it, and operating understanding, is that's kind of what all spirituality and religion is kind of getting at, right? We are all connected. Okay, so that's the trail, right? That's the trail that we're traveling on. We'll travel through our bodies, kind of get a sense of our energetic landscape, and see what's going on in our mental experiences, right? So if that's the terrain we're traveling on, mindfulness will be our compass. It'll give us a sense of where we're at, And yoga is going to be our gear, right? It's like your backpack. And in your backpack, you have a bunch of different tools, right? You got your snacks, you got maybe some layers if you're going higher and higher up the mountain and you need to cover yourself up a little bit. You have your tent, right? And not every tool has its purpose, right? Applied at the very right time and very right moment, every tool has a function and value, right? Um, Say, for example, if you're trying to work on your house and you have a hammer, maybe the hammer is really good in hammering nails, right? But you don't want to go around using a hammer to fix everything, right? Just like with our practice, there's going to be times when giving a little bit more physical effort is appropriate, or maybe using a different tool, right? Softening your body might be the appropriate tool, right? But how do you know, right? How do you know when to apply and use which tool? And that's what we're going to be doing, right? That's going to be the underlying exploration, right? Through mindfulness. Can you separate yourself from being like, well, this hammer worked last time, it should work today, Take a moment, stop and pause, and assess what's going on. And then maybe be like, okay, a screwdriver works better in this situation. Let me use the screwdriver, right? Because sometimes we get really stuck in that story of like, it worked before, or somebody told me this is what needs to happen, right? But I'd like to encourage you and give you the agency, right? To really just kind of be curious and open to what's going on in the moment.